The rain hammered the tarmac at Naval Air Station Oceana like artillery fire, turning the Virginia coastline into a gray blur of mist and shadow. Lieutenant Commander Kira Voss stepped out of the unmarked sedan with the kind of ease that comes from 20 years of walking into rooms where nobody expects you. Her flight suit was salt-stained and faded, the Velcro patches worn smooth from 1,000 missions nobody would ever read about in the papers. She carried a single duffel bag over her shoulder and a leather-bound logbook under her arm, the kind pilots don't let anyone else touch. The Marine corporal at the security checkpoint was maybe 22, fresh-faced and eager, his uniform still creased with factory lines. He held up one hand as Kira approached, his other resting on the radio clipped to his vest. The gate behind him led to a restricted apron where 3 aircraft sat waiting in the storm, their silhouettes barely visible through the sheets of rain. One of them was an EA-18G Growler, its twin-tail fins marked with a unit insignia most people in the Navy had never seen up close. The corporal glanced at Kira's chest, looking for a name tape that wasn't there, then at her face, which told him nothing. "Ma'am, this area is restricted," he said, his voice polite but firm. "I'm going to need to see your identification and your access authorization." Kira stopped 3 feet from him, rain dripping from the bill of her cap. She didn't reach for her ID. She didn't smile. She just looked at him with the kind of silence that makes people realize they've made a mistake they can't yet identify. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, her voice low and calm, the kind of calm that comes before storms. The corporal blinked. He'd been trained for a lot of scenarios, but not this one. "Ma'am, I need to see." "Call your watch commander," Kira said, cutting him off without raising her voice. "Tell him Reaper is on station." The call sign hung in the air between them like a ghost. The corporal's face changed just slightly, the way faces change when a name triggers a memory from a briefing nobody thought they'd need. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the radio, and in that moment of hesitation, Kira saw the question forming behind his eyes. Who was she? Why did that call sign make his training officer go quiet during the security briefing last month? And why was a woman in a worn flight suit standing in the rain asking him a question that suddenly felt like a test he was failing? The corporal keyed his radio, his voice less certain now. "Tower, this is Gate 7. I have a pilot here requesting access to the restricted apron. Call sign Reaper." The response came back within seconds, but it wasn't from the tower. It was a different voice, older, edged with urgency. "Gate 7, you will grant immediate access to Lieutenant Commander Voss. Acknowledge." The corporal's eyes widened. He looked at Kira again, really looked this time, and saw something he'd missed before. The way she stood wasn't casual. It was the stillness of someone who'd learned to conserve energy in places where energy meant survival. The logbook under her arm was thick, its pages swollen with salt water and time, and her eyes, gray as the storm around them, held a weight that made him feel like he was 17 again, standing in his recruiter's office trying to prove he belonged. "Ma'am, I apologize," he stammered, stepping aside and raising the gate. "I didn't realize." "You did your job," Kira said, already moving past him. "That's all anyone can ask." She walked toward the flight line, her boots splashing through puddles that reflected the pale emergency lights. Behind her, the corporal stood frozen, watching her disappear into the rain. He would tell this story later in the barracks and nobody would believe him. But right now, all he could think about was the way that call sign Reaper had made his watch commander's voice crack over the radio. Kira reached the Growler and ran her hand along its rain-slicked fuselage, feeling the cold metal beneath her palm. The aircraft was a beast, an electronic warfare platform capable of turning enemy radar into useless static and communications into chaos. It wasn't fast like an FA-18, wasn't pretty like an F-35. It was a hammer wrapped in stealth, a weapon most people never saw coming, just like her. She glanced toward the hangar where 3 officers stood watching her through the half-open bay doors. 2 were men in their 50s, their uniforms heavy with ribbons and stars. The third was a woman in her 40s, a captain with sharp eyes and a reputation for running the tightest ship in the Atlantic Fleet. None of them were smiling. Kira knew why she'd been called back. 3 weeks ago, a SEAL team had gone dark during a hostage rescue operation in the South China Sea. The mission was classified at a level most admirals would never see. The team had been inserted by submarine, supported by a drone network that was supposed to give them eyes on everything within a 20-mile radius. But something had gone wrong. The drones had been jammed, the communications had been severed, and 6 SEALs had found themselves surrounded by an enemy that knew exactly where they were. They'd sent one message before the blackout: "Need Reaper." That message had traveled up the chain of command like wildfire, bypassing protocols and clearances until it landed on the desk of someone who remembered what that call sign meant. Someone who knew that when SEALs asked for Reaper, they weren't asking for air support. They were asking for a miracle. Kira walked into the hangar, water dripping from her flight suit onto the polished concrete floor. The 2 admirals looked her over with expressions that mixed skepticism and desperation. The captain, whose name was Elena Ortiz and whose service record included 3 combat deployments and a Silver Star, stepped forward first. "Commander Voss," Ortiz said, her voice clipped and professional. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Ma'am," Kira replied, setting her duffel bag down but keeping the logbook under her arm. She didn't salute. This wasn't that kind of meeting. The taller of the 2 admirals, a man named Garrett with iron-gray hair and a face like weathered granite, cleared his throat. "Commander, we need to be clear about something from the start. This mission doesn't exist. The team doesn't exist. If something goes wrong, you don't exist. Are we understood?" Kira met his eyes without flinching. "Understood, sir." The second admiral, younger and leaner, with a name tape that read Sullivan, opened a tablet and turned it toward her. The screen showed a satellite image of a small island in the South China Sea, heavily forested with a single runway cut through the trees and a cluster of buildings near the northern shore. "This is where they are," Sullivan said. "Or were, as of 18 hours ago. The island is controlled by a private military contractor with ties to 3 different governments, none of them friendly. The SEALs were supposed to extract a high-value target, but the operation was compromised. We believe they're being held in this building here." He pointed to a concrete structure half hidden by the jungle canopy. "Satellite shows no movement, no heat signatures. Either they're dead or they've gone completely dark." Kira studied the image, her mind already running calculations. Distance from Oceania to the operational area, refueling points, weather patterns over the Pacific, electronic countermeasures. She looked up, her expression unchanged. "What's the support package?" Ortiz answered. "You'll have 2 FA-18s for top cover, a KC-130 for refueling, and a submarine on station for extraction. The SEALs have a sealed delivery vehicle hidden on the south side of the island. If you can get them to the water, the sub can pick them up." "And the enemy's air defense?" Kira asked. Sullivan's jaw tightened. "That's the problem. They've got a layered system: radar, infrared, acoustic sensors. They knew we were coming last time, which means they've got intelligence we don't understand yet. If you go in loud, you're dead. If you go in dark, you might not find them in time." Kira nodded slowly. She'd been in impossible situations before. This was just another flavor of impossible. "What's the timeline?" 12 hours, Garrett said flatly. "After that, we have to assume they're compromised and the mission is terminated. No rescue, no recovery, nothing." The hangar fell silent except for the rain hammering the metal roof. Kira looked at the 3 officers, seeing the weight they carried, the knowledge that 6 lives hung in the balance, and they were asking one pilot to do what an entire carrier strike group couldn't. "I'll need my crew," Kira said finally, "and I'll need access to the equipment cage." Ortiz nodded and gestured toward a side door. "Your electronic warfare officer is already here. Lieutenant Maya Reyes, she flew with you in Syria." Kira felt something loosen in her chest. Reyes was good, one of the best EWOs in the Navy, with a gift for reading electronic signals the way some people read sheet music. If anyone could navigate the electronic minefield waiting for them over that island, it was Reyes. "Good," Kira said. "I'll brief her myself. What about the Growler?" "Is it configured for this?" "Modified 2 days ago," Sullivan said. "Extended range fuel tanks, upgraded jamming pods, and a few things that aren't in any manual. You'll have capabilities that didn't exist when you flew your last mission." Kira almost smiled. "Almost. Then we're burning daylight. I need weather updates, real-time intel on enemy patrol patterns, and a direct line to the sub-commander. If we're going to pull this off, everyone needs to be on the same frequency, literally and figuratively. The admirals exchanged glances. Garrett nodded. You'll have everything you need, Commander, but understand this. If you get shot down, we can't come get you. You'll be on your own. Kira picked up her duffel bag and slung it over her shoulder. Sir, I've been on my own since I was 23 years old and flew my first combat mission over Afghanistan. This is just another day. She turned and walked toward the side door, her boots echoing in the empty hangar. Behind her, she heard Ortiz say quietly, "She's exactly like they said she was." Kira didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She knew what they said about her. They said she was cold. They said she was reckless. They said she had a death wish and a talent for surviving things that should have killed her. They said she'd lost her entire squadron in a mission gone wrong and blamed herself every day since. They said a lot of things, and some of them were even true. But what they didn't say, what they couldn't say because it was classified at a level that made admirals nervous, was that Kira Voss had pulled off 3-0 failure extractions in her career, missions where the odds were so stacked against success that planning them felt like writing obituaries. SEALs didn't ask for Reaper because she was the best pilot in the Navy. They asked for Reaper because when everything went to hell and the book said to abort, she rewrote the book. Kira found Reyes in the equipment cage, hunched over a laptop surrounded by cables and electronic modules. Reyes looked up when the door opened, her dark eyes sharp and alert despite the exhaustion written across her face. She was 31, lean and compact, with short black hair and the kind of focus that made her dangerous in a cockpit. "Commander," Reyes said, standing up. "They told me you were coming. I didn't believe them." "Believe it," Kira replied, dropping her duffel bag and moving to the table. "Show me what we're working with." Reyes pulled up a three-dimensional map on the laptop screen, the island rendered in detail with layers of electronic signatures overlaid in different colors. Red for radar, orange for infrared, yellow for communications. The island looked like a Christmas tree wrapped in hostile intent. "They've got an S-band search radar here," Reyes said, pointing to the northern tip of the island. "Probably Chinese-made, maybe Russian. It's got a range of about 80 miles, which means they'll see us coming long before we reach the target area. There's also a short-range infrared system covering the runway and the building where the SEALs are being held. And here she pointed to a cluster of yellow dots. We've got encrypted communications traffic bouncing between the island and what we think is a command ship about 50 miles to the west." Kira leaned closer, studying the map. "Can you jam the radar without them knowing?" Reyes hesitated. "Maybe. If we come in low and use the terrain to mask our approach, I can feed them a ghost image, make them think we're somewhere we're not. But the second they lose the ghost, they'll know someone's playing games with their system. We'll have maybe 5 minutes before they light us up with everything they've got." "5 minutes is enough," Kira said. "What about the infrared?" "Trickier," Reyes admitted. "Infrared doesn't care about jamming. It sees heat, and a growler puts out a lot of heat. We'd need to come in fast and low, stay under their horizon until the last possible second. Even then, if they've got a competent operator, they'll catch us." Kira straightened, her mind already assembling the pieces. "We don't come in from the north. We come in from the south over the water, using the submarine's position as a reference point. We fly at wave-top level until we're inside their radar envelope. Then we pop up, jam the radar, and make a single pass over the target. I need you to isolate their communications frequency and send a burst transmission to the SEALs. If they're still alive, they'll respond." Reyes nodded slowly. "And if they don't respond, then we abort," Kira said, her voice flat. "I'm not risking our lives for corpses." Reyes didn't flinch. She'd flown with Kira before, knew the commander didn't say things to sound tough. She said things because they were true, and truth was the only currency that mattered at 30,000 feet with missiles on your tail. "Understood," Reyes said. "I'll configure the jamming pods and prep the burst transmission. When do we launch?" Kira checked her watch. 6 hours. That puts us over the target just after midnight local time. The darker the better." Reyes started gathering equipment, her movements quick and efficient. Kira watched her for a moment, then said quietly, "Maya." Reyes paused, looking up. Kira's expression softened just slightly. If this goes bad, you eject first. I'll buy you the time. Reyes held her gaze, then shook her head. Respectfully, ma'am, if this goes bad, we're both screwed. So let's just make sure it doesn't go bad. Kira almost smiled. Fair enough. They spent the next 4 hours preparing, running through checklists and contingencies, memorizing frequencies and coordinates until the mission was burned into their minds like scars. Kira walked the flight line twice, inspecting the Growler with the meticulous attention of someone who knew that a single loose bolt could mean the difference between success and a fireball over the Pacific. The aircraft was ready. The crew was ready. The only question left was whether the universe was ready to let them pull off something this insane. As the sun set over Virginia, Kira stood alone on the tarmac, watching the clouds roll in from the ocean. She thought about the 6 SEALs on that island, wondered what they were thinking, whether they still believed help was coming. She thought about her own squadron, the one she'd lost 7 years ago in the mountains of Afghanistan, when an ambush turned a milk run into a massacre. She'd been the only one to make it back, the only one to land her burning aircraft and walk away, while 5 of her friends went into the ground in flag-draped boxes. The Navy had cleared her of wrongdoing. The investigation had called it bad luck, bad intelligence, bad timing, but Kira knew the truth. She'd missed a signal, misread a radar contact, made a call that put them in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now, 7 years later, she was still trying to make up for it, still trying to prove that she deserved to wear the wings on her chest. Maybe that's why SEALs asked for Reaper. Not because she was fearless, but because she was haunted. And haunted people don't quit. The night was black and moonless when Kira and Reyes walked to the Growler. The aircraft sat under portable lights, its gray paint absorbing the shadows, its twin engines silent and waiting. The crew chief, a grizzled master chief named Tom Harding, stood by the ladder with a flashlight and a grim expression. "She's ready, Commander," Harding said. "Fueled, armed, and meaner than a junkyard dog. Bring her back in one piece." Kira nodded. "I'll do my best, Master Chief." Harding handed her a folded piece of paper. "This was dropped off an hour ago, orders from upstairs." Kira unfolded the paper and read the single line typed across it. "Failure is not an option. Success is not guaranteed. Godspeed." She folded it back up and tucked it into her flight suit. "Sounds about right." She climbed into the cockpit, the familiar smell of jet fuel and hydraulic fluid surrounding her like an old friend. Reyes settled into the seat behind her, already powering up the electronic warfare systems. The displays flickered to life, bathing the cockpit in a pale green glow. Kira ran through the startup checklist, her hands moving with the muscle memory of 10,000 flight hours. The engine spooled up with a rising whine and the Growler shuddered as power flooded through its systems. She keyed the radio. "Oceana Tower, Reaper 2-1 is ready for departure." The tower's response was immediate. "Reaper 2-1, you are cleared for departure. Winds are 270 at 15 knots. Godspeed." Kira released the brakes, and the Growler rolled forward, gathering speed as it accelerated down the runway. The lights of the base fell away behind them, and then they were airborne, climbing into the black sky with nothing ahead but ocean and distance and the weight of 6 lives hanging in the balance. Reyes' voice came through the intercom, calm and steady. "All systems green. Jamming pods are active. We're invisible to radar for now." "Copy," Kira said, setting course for the refueling point. Time to target, 7 hours. The Growler leveled off at 30,000 feet, its wings slicing through the night. Below them, the Atlantic stretched out like a dark mirror, endless and indifferent. Kira settled into the rhythm of the flight, her mind focused on the mission ahead, but a small part of her couldn't help but think about that Marine corporal at the gate. He'd asked her a question, a simple question, and she'd turned it into something else. "Do you know who I am?" It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't pride. It was a challenge, a reminder that the world is full of people who look like they don't belong, who get underestimated and overlooked and dismissed. And sometimes, those people are the ones who save your life. Kira glanced at the photo taped to her instrument panel, a picture of her old squadron standing in front of their aircraft, young and confident and alive. She'd carried that photo through every mission since the day she lost them, a reminder of what happened when you got it wrong. "Reaper to all stations," she said over the encrypted channel. "We're en route, see you on the other side." The radio crackled back with acknowledgments from the FA-18s, the tanker, the submarine. Everyone was in position. Everyone was ready. Now it was just a matter of flying into the teeth of the enemy and hoping that luck, skill, and sheer stubbornness would be enough. The Growler pushed deeper into the night, its engines humming a low, steady note that sounded almost like a promise, or maybe a prayer. The Pacific refueling went smoothly, the KC-130 tanker materializing out of the darkness like a guardian angel with wings. Kira guided the Growler into position behind the tanker, the refueling probe extending with a metallic click. Fuel flowed into the aircraft's tanks while Reyes monitored the electronic environment, watching for any sign that they'd been detected. They hadn't. Not yet. After refueling, the two FA-18s joined them, sleek and deadly, their pilots checking in over the radio with call signs Hammer 1 and Hammer 2. Kira didn't know them personally, but their voices had the calm confidence of people who'd done this before, people who understood that their job was to keep the sky clear while Reaper did the impossible. "Reaper, Hammer 1, came the first pilot's voice. "We've got your 6. Say the word and we'll turn anything that moves into scrap metal." "Appreciated, Hammer," Kira replied. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." They descended as they approached the operational area, dropping from 30,000 feet to 5,000, then to 1,000, until the Growler was skimming just above the wave tops, so low that Kira could see the white foam of the crests in the faint starlight. This was the dangerous part, flying at high speed in complete darkness with nothing but instruments and instinct to keep them from slamming into the ocean. One mistake, one moment of inattention, and they'd cartwheel into the water and disappear without a trace. But Kira didn't make mistakes. Not anymore. Reyes' voice cut through the tension. "I've got the island on radar. Bearing 095, range 30 miles. Their search radar is active, but we're below their horizon. They don't see us." "Copy," Kira said. "Stand by for the run." She pushed the throttles forward and the Growler surged ahead, eating up the miles between them and the target. The aircraft shook with the strain, the airframe protesting at being pushed so hard so low, but it held together. It always did. At 10 miles out, Reyes activated the jamming pods. The enemy radar screen would now be showing a ghost image, a phantom contact moving in the wrong direction, buying them precious seconds. Kira pulled back on the stick, and the Growler climbed sharply, rising from the wave tops to 5,000 feet in a matter of seconds. The island appeared ahead, a dark smudge against the darker ocean, its lights barely visible through the cloud cover. "Transmitting burst now," Reyes said, her fingers flying over the controls. The message was simple, encoded in a frequency only the SEALs would recognize. "Reaper inbound, mark your position." For 5 seconds there was nothing. Then, faint and crackling, a response came back. "Reaper, this is Trident 6. We are in the shit. Building northeast corner, 3 hostiles inside, 8 outside. We are down to small arms and good intentions. Need immediate extraction." Kira felt her pulse steady. They were alive. That changed everything. "Trident 6, Reaper copies. Stand by for close air support. Mark your position with infrared strobe, friendlies only." "Copy, Reaper, marking now." Reyes locked onto the infrared signal, a faint flicker on the thermal display. "I've got them. Northeast corner, just like they said. And I've got heat signatures all around the building. Looks like they're surrounded." Kira banked the Growler hard to the right, lining up for the pass. The island's air defenses were waking up now, radar beams sweeping the sky, searching for the ghost that had just become real. Alarms started blaring in the cockpit as missile launch warnings lit up the displays. "They've locked us up," Reyes said, her voice tight. "2 SAMs inbound, probably shoulder-fired. They're tracking." Kira didn't hesitate. She threw the Growler into a dive, dropping flares and chaff as the missiles screamed toward them. The first missile detonated behind them, the explosion rocking the aircraft but missing by 100 feet. The second missile went stupid, chasing a flare into the darkness. "Hammer flight, Reaper," Kira called over the radio. "We've got SAMs active. Clear the area around the target building. Danger close." "Copy, Reaper. Hammer 2 is in hot." One of the FA-18s rolled into a dive, its targeting pod locked onto the hostiles surrounding the building. The Hornet's cannon roared to life, 20-millimeter rounds stitching across the ground in a line of fire and destruction. Bodies scattered and the return fire from the ground went silent. Hammer 2 is off target, the pilot called. Multiple confirmed kills. Friendlies are clear to move. Kira brought the Growler around for another pass, lower this time, close enough to see the details of the building, the blown-out windows, the scorch marks on the walls. She could see figures moving inside, 6 of them, dragging something heavy toward the door. Trident 6, Reaper, you are clear to move to the southern beach. Extraction vehicle is standing by. Move now. Copy, Reaper, we're moving, thanks for the assist. The SEALs burst out of the building, moving fast despite their injuries, their weapons raised as they covered each other in a practice drill. Kira stayed overhead, circling the area, watching for any sign of reinforcements. Reyes was monitoring the communications traffic, listening to the enemy's panicked chatter as they tried to figure out what had just hit them. They're calling for reinforcements, Reyes said. We've got maybe 3 minutes before this place turns into a hornet's nest. Then we better make it count, Kira replied. She watched the SEALs reach the beach, watched them drag a small watercraft out of the jungle and into the surf. The submarine was already rising to periscope depth, its conning tower barely visible against the black water. The SEALs loaded into the craft and pushed off, the small motor kicking to life as they headed toward the sub. Kira stayed overhead until she saw them reach the submarine, saw the hatch open and the SEALs disappear inside. Only then did she key the radio. Trident 6 is secure. Mission complete. Reaper is off station. The acknowledgments came back quickly, relief evident in every voice. Kira turned the Growler northwest, back toward the open ocean, back toward safety. The island fell away behind them, its lights dimming in the distance. Reyes let out a long breath. I can't believe we just did that. Believe it, Kira said, because now comes the hard part. What's harder than what we just did? Explaining it to the admirals. Reyes laughed, a sound that broke the tension like a hammer through glass. Kira allowed herself a small smile. They'd done it. Against the odds, against the enemy, against the universe itself, they'd pulled 6 men out of hell and brought them home. The flight back to Oceana took 8 hours, the adrenaline fatting into exhaustion as the miles stretched out behind them. Kira flew on autopilot, her mind replaying the mission, looking for mistakes, for things she could have done better. There were always things she could have done better, but this time, everyone had made it home. This time there were no flag-draped coffins. This time she'd gotten it right. When they landed at Oceana, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The Growler touched down with a gentle thump, and Kira taxied to the hangar where Captain Ortiz and the 2 admirals were waiting. She shut down the engines and climbed out of the cockpit, her legs stiff and her body aching. Ortiz walked over, her expression unreadable. For a long moment she just looked at Kira, and Kira looked back, waiting for the verdict. Then Ortiz smiled, a real smile, and extended her hand. Welcome back, Commander. Well done. Kira shook her hand, feeling the weight of the mission lift just slightly from her shoulders. Thank you, ma'am. Admiral Garrett stepped forward.